we'll get started. Just open up with an update on a transaction that we're making right now. Unfortunately, we've had to release Marquand McCall. Those are tough decisions. We appreciate his contribution. Honestly, we're doing it now because we think he's going to be on a roster somewhere. It just comes down to two things. It comes down to a fit, for us and what we're trying to do. And then we've had a couple guys at that position who have, really looked good. So I wish Marquand the best and appreciate his contribution. I'll open it up from there.
Frank, he's a guy that started your preseason opener. Why the sudden turn of events here?
I think it does come down to the two things that we're talking about. It really comes down to fit with a certain scheme and style that we're looking for. And then some of the young guys that we've brought in have really risen to the challenge. And so it's been very competitive, right? This time of the year, as you guys know, like this next week is, for us coaches, this is as tough as it gets because you feel like legitimately, I feel like every guy on our 90-man roster, I feel like every one of these players is good enough to make a 53-man roster. And so, when you get to this side, when you get to this point, it's pretty tough.
Frank, you guys have talked about running a 3-4. He's a pretty traditional nose tackle. When you say fit, do you just how do you quantify that?
It's in multiple ways. I don't want to really. It's a very fair question because you're right. Just body type and other ways you think. Well, he is the traditional 3-4, and that's why I think he's going to be on a roster. I think for us in our scheme, there's more nuances to it than the traditional thing. So I just leave it at that. But good, fair, and good question.
Did it come to watching how he fit in the games? And you brought up consistency with a lot of players who are fighting for jobs. Is that kind of where you're coming from?
Yeah, every position is competitive, and like I said, the young guys that we have at that position have performed well, and so.
Who do you foresee sliding into that starting role?
We'll just let that. I was just thinking about. Great question. Because I was just thinking about that this morning at the walkthrough, thinking about coming into this last game, what's the message to the team? And, there's I don't know if this is the right or politically correct way to say it, but that recency bias of I want these guys to know, like, it's amazing how much impact one last good game can make. It can make a difference in you making this team or in you making another team. So we come into this last game, there are still some decisions that are up, we might be leaning one way or the other, but like there's still opportunities for everyone.
Troy Hill, just what does he bring? What did you guys like about him to bring him in?
He's experienced in our system. The scouting department all liked him. Our coaches have some of our defensive coaches have a history with him, so it's a good fit.
Do you think he'll be able to play this week or?
We'll see. He's getting in today. We won't rush it. We'll make the best decision for him and for the team.
Frank, switching topics a little bit, there's probably a lot of old school football fans out there that say, hey, you got a rookie quarterback. Why isn't he playing more in the preseason? Why doesn't he, play the whole game? Not the whole game, but maybe 3 quarters.
Yeah.
How much did it take for you guys as coaching staff to kind of decide on how much to play him? And do you feel like he's going to be ready for the regular season?
Yes, I feel he'll be ready. He's very accomplished mentally, maturity-wise. It's always that healthy tension between, getting him enough reps, getting our guys enough reps, and exposing them to undue risk of injury. And honestly, especially last week with, when you go up against that defensive scheme we went up against last week where it's a blitz fest or it can be a blitz fest, it's like, is it really, how much of it is worth it? It was great to prepare for it, to have to go through the mental exercise of, hey, we got to get ready for all these blitzes. But then, you just wait. It's risk reward on how much do you play.
With that in mind, what have you decided about what that looks like for Bryce Friday?
Great question, and that is why we're planning on playing him. Sometimes a lot of teams won't play their starters in the last preseason game. We're going to play Bryce and play our offensive starters. Still want to get more reps. I think we had about 20 last week or something like that. And, it's kind of TBD again, I mean, could be about the same, could be a little less, could be a little bit more. Like to get a little rhythm going, accomplish certain things, so we'll play it by ear.
It's always, I guess, the other balance of it is chemistry, developing that chemistry in a game situation, right?
Yeah, and fair, very fair, but like we think, are preseason games weighted more than practice? Of course they are. How much more? 10% more, 20% more? They're weighted more, but like we've gotten a lot of work. He's gotten a lot of work and a lot of reps. That's why we made the decision when we did back in the spring to announce him as the starter, to put him and our team in a position, say, hey, this is who we're going to be going forward. Let's get this work. So I appreciate and understand, the thought of the preseason games, but, we're practicing at a high level, and that I think is preparing us for the season.
Frank, the message that one game can really make a difference, you're kind of light in the running back room. Spencer Brown's played a lot. What does he need to do to continue to rise?
Yeah, I mean, he's done a good job. We're always looking for three things from the back. We're looking for, first as a runner that, just be a productive runner. And then we're looking for, pass protection. Can you be reliable in pass protection? And then third is, just kind of the instinctive, situational, smart football player kind of deal. You put those three things together and just show consistency in those three things. That's what we're looking for.
Frank, not to belabor the point, but McCall is listed as the starter on the unofficial depth chart. Was this a scheme fit issue or kind of a program fit?
I just think it's just an overall fit. You know what I mean? Like, listen, I personally have felt like I have a good personal connection with Marquand, and love the individual and love what he's contributed, and I believe he has, like I said, the talent to be on a 53-man roster, and I believe he will be. But we as a staff are collectively, and with Scott and his staff, saying, what are we trying to do? There's so many, and you guys know this as just as equally, almost as much as I do, where there's just a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts, and so sometimes tough decisions need to be made.
I mean, the three guys during the offseason program that you thought were going to compete at nose tackle are not here. What have Raekwon and I guess LeBron and Ray done to kind of assert themselves over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, been consistent, made some plays, fit in multiple ways of what we're looking for.
You said that Bryce wanted to throw the ball more the other night. Is that something you plan to do this week to get that rhythm? Or?
Yeah, not necessarily. We'll just mix it up. I mean, we've talked to, listen, Bryce is coming obviously from a highly successful program where they could pretty much do what they wanted to do against a lot of teams. But, in this league, we're looking for balance in our offense. So that doesn't mean that we can't go in and have one game that's more heavy run and another game that's more heavy pass. So, we'll have, a few specific objectives, maybe a few certain concepts that we want to look at or throw, with him or with our team, or just kind of, run. It's kind of the next step or evolution of what we're trying to do and to get ready. So don't want to make any more or less of it than that.
I want to ask you too, you said the other night he looked sharp. Were you talking specifically about his reads or the entire game, or?
Yeah, I thought his reads were sharp. I thought there was one play where he was off, and that was and that was really about it. But other than that, I thought he looked crisp in the pocket, decisive, knowing, seeing it well. And other than one play, thought his eyes were at the right place.
Another game with Thomas Brown calling plays in the second half. How have you seen him grow in that role the past couple games?
He's doing great. I mean, listen, I made no bones about it since I've been here, that I eventually want to make that transition, and just so you guys, I mean, I think I've said this before, but first of all, whether I'm calling it or he's calling it, it's very collaborative. Like, I'm talking to the guy, he's talking, when he's calling it, he's talking to all of us. When I'm calling it, I'm saying, Thomas, what do you think about this? Or Parks, that's just the way we approach it. And you don't ask those questions on every play, but multiple times during the game. So, I would envision, whether it's this year or next year, or I'm not ruling out anything. The long-term goal and vision is for me to transfer those duties to him. And I will say this, he's way ahead of, like, just not in the production that we've had, because it's been good and he's done a good job, and I think sequencing plays. But for me, in assessing him, it's not about how many yards did we gain or how many points did we score when he was calling it. It's more, how does he sound on the phone? How is the conversation with the quarterbacks? How is the conversation with the staff? He feels like a seasoned play caller to me. He feels like a seasoned play caller. But I also know, it's a long process, and as getting developed in that way.
I would do a couple more.
How did your experience with Sirianni and I guess Doug help you kind of find comfort in that collaboration in game?
I mean, that's the way, when I was in Philadelphia with Coach Peterson, I loved the relationship that we have. I knew he was in charge, he was calling it, but he leaned heavily on me, leaned heavily on staff, the offensive line coach and the whole staff. And it was a great dynamic. I mean, honestly, it just makes it better, and I think it makes it more fun and engaging. Everybody's involved. You need to be on your toes. I'm primarily going to talk to Thomas. When I'm calling it, I'll primarily talk to Thomas, but everybody on that staff needs to know that they need to be ready, because like each coach might have one guy's doing red zone, one guy's doing third down, one guy's doing short yardage, and so on and so forth. So I might say to the guy who's in short, hey, we still good with this on short yardage? It's still our number one call. We all feel good about it, and it's those are split-second conversations that are just part of developing chemistry as a staff.
We saw Gary Jennings make the nice catch, had a few plays down in training camp. What about him do you like? I know you have a little bit of a pass with him, and then Shi Smith as well. What do those two guys need to do? I know there's a couple injuries in that room, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think those guys, what I love about the two guys who you mentioned, really this room in general, Coach Jefferson just does such a good job where they just come in, no egos. Those two guys both have speed. They both can get vertically down the field, and they've both made plays. So excited for them to get another opportunity.
Rick, you got an update on the kicking situation? You think Eddie will be ready for the season?
Yeah, a great question. I do think he'll be ready for the season. There's a small chance he may get a rep or two this week. This Friday, I was just talking to Tabes about that a little bit. We might work him back into practice a little bit, but we're not going to overdo it. Like if he does play in this game, it'll be limited opportunities, probably shorter stuff, and probably shorter stuff just to kind of get him a couple reps, and then just wait till the regular season for kickoffs and stuff.
Right. Do you just mind if I get one more in? George, we were talking about the communication. How much does George Lee factor into that?
Oh my goodness! I mean, George Lee he's a monster. I mean, he's amazing. Him and Taylor Rajak, as our analytics team. I've been with George for 5 years. This is year 6. Taylor, obviously, I have history with in Philadelphia. So great analytics guys, very dynamic conversations about situations, fourth down, timeouts, go for it, penalties, all things related to situational football. It's a collaborative effort. Those guys bring a lot to the table.
Frank,
We got it after.
what was the deal with Stanley not playing Friday?
Just more of it, just injury, just injury. So just wanting to be smart and, make sure we're doing the right
Is
thing.
that part of the reason you brought Troy in?
Yeah, and just always looking for, depth as well. And we've been kind of, keeping an eye on Troy, just because of the experience and history with our staff. So kind of a combination of those things.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.